Do you remember finishing Kingdom Hearts 2 for the very first time? You probably spent around 30 hours, or like in my case, well over 40 before the credits hit, in this amazing, wonderful game that's easily among my favorites of all time. I was so young and lost in the experience on my PlayStation 2, which felt like a lifetime ago. But this is a story that began a few years prior with the unlikely creation of Kingdom Hearts 1, and journeying through this bizarre series up until that point was already a massive roller coaster of strange, charming, confusing, and even saddening moments. After an uplifting, innocent, and inspiring adventure, ending on a rather poignantly depressing note, where our protagonist is forcibly ripped away from his best friend by Judy, we're left in gloomy times of hoping for more to eventually come. The original Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advance came around, serving as a setup for KH2, which delved into the introduction of the Organization 13, the existence of Namine, Riku's whereabouts and beginnings of overcoming his weaknesses, as well as leading into Sora's eventual sleep and loss of memories, both his own and from the ones he loved. However, for many fans going into the sequel like myself, I either never played or even heard about the Game Boy Advance continuation, so the introduction was especially jarring initially. I still remember the night Dad came home with the surprising game in hand, and I was more than thrilled, especially with how amazing it turned out to be. Now begins a new arc, where both the non- and GBA players alike are thrown into the middle of a cryptic situation. The first few hours I could never bring myself to hate, only because the main characters like Roxas, Axel and Namine were all seemingly very well realized, I felt. Even if the plot was a little slow, with a sense of monotony at times, but it ended up telling a story that left me breathlessly bittersweet for how Roxas' last scene was executed, and I think it was even more appreciated by the GBA players knowing far greater context. Sora awakens after the scene and is reunited with his companions Donald and Goofy, and it was a joyful return to form. A new threat arises where you face the Nobodies and the rest of the Organization 13, all with truly badass unique powers. You travel to 15 worlds, both original and Disney ones alike, all with a strong sense of nostalgia, novelty and adventure around every corner. Gameplay is far superior to any of that before and beyond in the franchise from the opinions of many fans, with dynamic, fluid yet fairly impactful combat, awesome additions of drive forms and quick time events to add flair to the already solid game. Soundtrack was as good as ever, composed again by the legendary Yoko Shimomura. We get to know Kairi's status all grown up. Goofy dies. The memorable 1000 Heartless battle takes place. The search for Riku continues and leads us to an unexpected conclusion, and the rest is history. Before you know it, you're at the end. It's time for the final boss. And it was an epic one, with multiple phases just like in Kingdom Hearts 1 against Ansem. Even getting to the antagonist, Xemnas, was a massive job of its own. And Sora's physical feats really shine through for the first time in memory, cutting through massive buildings with ease, and jumping across hundreds of meters if not kilometers. The point is, as silly and ridiculous as it may be to some, this was really cool and grand as a kid. You face against his armored form who uses many weapons of the organization members, which was a really nice touch, but you do come out easily victorious. And congratulations, you beat the final boss. Xemnas' arc comes to a finish, leaving off on a rather somber conclusion, as the whole purpose of the organization, at the time at least, was to have feelings and a heart of their own, which was all they really ever wanted. And we also get closure between Namine and Roxas, who are now resting from where they originated from, Kairi and Sora. This was a little emotional as it clearly portrayed in the beginning that Roxas wanted to be his own person, but here he is in acceptance, stripped away from the freedom he fought so hard once upon a time. It's clear that the Nobodies had an arduous journey of their own, and I couldn't help but emphasize with them. However, the two can rest easy, as long as Kairi and Sora are together, they are too symbolically. I imagine it was even harder on the Chain of Memories players, as this was also Namine's end. We got to see her and Sora build such a strong bond in the past, and to see Sora so oblivious as she disappears would have been heartbreaking. It was a solid and peaceful end for the two. But wait, Xemnas is back, cutting us off from finishing the story, and we hop on a conveniently placed vehicle to fight in a somewhat gummy ship-like battle versus a massive dragon-like nobody monster. The armored form returns afterwards, and is significantly harder to beat, hurling literal buildings and laser beams at our protagonist. Astonishing quick time events are on full display once again, as you fearlessly slash towers back at him yourself. The final phase at last is here, and the real battle begins against the villain's true form, set in the realm of nothingness. The developers did a great job in making an open abstract setting that felt like an endless void. Here you dodge lasers, teleport, fight against clones and even play as Riku for a short period of time. So much is going on, There are so many beautifully choreographed fight scenes between our casts. And who can forget the infamous but epic laser dome sequence, where we all literally buried our triangle and X buttons to death. The clash ends with Riku protecting Sora, showcasing the bond between the two, all before Sora reigns on Xemnas with a series of dual-wielding attacks, making for some of the most satisfying moments in the series. And together, they deliver the final blow, and Xemnas meets his demise. The battle was among the most memorable moments. The two further face off against endless hordes of nobodies off screen, and are later teleported to the realm of darkness. At this point, I'm sure a lot of us are exhausted, just like our two main characters, but we can clearly sense the climax is over and the finale is coming. The waves peacefully flows in the background, creating a sense of calmness after a storm. It's familiar like our time on Destiny Island a few years ago, just like it would have been for them too, yet the setting is so distant from home. We get a real heart-to-heart moment with the two, expressing how they both viewed each other as best friends and as inspirations. The fallout and jealousy theme between the two in KH1 finally wrapped up with the icing on cake. It was an appeasing moment in a hopeless setting. The two came to accept the situation, reminiscent to Roxas at the beginning. Riku is the first to come across and read the letter and bottle that Kairi in the beginning let go of on Destiny Island, set up to be addressed for this occasion. He understands it was a message for Sora and gives it to him. The CGI and orchestral for Simple and Clean begins. The soundtrack was the main original theme of the first game, in which it both began and ended with, but this time we get a far more elegant and hopeful tone to complement the narrative. It's crazy how just one song can have so many different meanings in a story. The letter poetically connects both Sora and Kairi's voice together, opening a new and promising path along with the music, the door to light. As for how exactly this happened, with the letter somehow appearing here and summoning a portal, we have no idea, but I can only speculate it was their connection and because Kairi was a princess of heart. But to me, this detail didn't matter at all. A new scene takes place, and a dolly out from the water gives us an idea of where we are. The scene hits its audience with warm colours, juxtaposition with the previous area, which was cold and blue. We can see what resembles two meteorites in the distance, falling from the sky, which turns out to be the two characters. This is quite nostalgic to the original opening. An over-the-shoulder long shot of Kairi is shown after they land and have their names called, and it's confirmed our heroes are finally home. Sanctuary plays, and once again with a new, slower rendition, parallel with what Simple and Clean did in the first game. We have a duality in meaning of soundtrack, now being one of reflection and finality. The facial and body animations are done superb, as we truly get a sense of just how happy Sora is to finally be home after searching for Kairi in the first game and Riku in the second. Out of nowhere, we truly get an endearing moment with our cast embracing each other, and it really does feel like a family reuniting weirdly enough. We see Sora pull out the Wayfinder given to him near the end of the first game by Kairi. Sora fades into Roxas as Kairi fades into Naminé, as a reminder and a small nod that the two are together, and the sacrifices they made for this moment to happen. Kairi offers her hand, and Sora responds giving back her Wayfinder in time with the piano key and vocals, the exact opposite of the original. Sora at last fulfills his promise. Their story at last has come full circle. As cheesy as it may have been on the outside, I honestly didn't feel that at all, which was one of the first in the series for me. After all they've been through, not only did they deserve it, but it just felt right for what they built towards the conclusion, and was executed more through blocking and action, rather than mostly with the sometimes stilted dialogue, something a little rarer seen in the more emotional parts of the franchise. Not an explanation was really needed. This was one of the most fulfilling ends to just about anything I've experienced, especially in a ride we've been soaring through for quite a few years at this point. I think how everything finished did serve as one of the better examples of payoffs in the story of Kingdom Hearts, concluding so many character arcs set up in the series. The sequence focused far more on the showing and simplicity of character interactions, rather than trying to blow your mind by collecting every dot made together. I was left feeling speechless and complete overall. It felt far more self-contained and conclusive than the good majority of the other games. Of course, there still were questions yet to be answered, and the story didn't do the best job in recapping everything from Chain of Memories. But at the resolution of it all, I couldn't help but be satisfied. Maybe in the same way Sora remains oblivious to the sacrifices made for him, and trust me, there's a lot more than meets the eye. Maybe I also chose to accept at the time we wouldn't get the answers to everything, and just enjoy a happy ending. The Chain of Memories players would have gotten a very unique perspective on the finale, with a sharper look on the series overall, and I do wonder how they felt. Beyond the credits, an important message from Mickey arrives, hinting and setting up for the eventual future of the series, leading into what we thought at the time was Kingdom Hearts 3. Then the secret ending of the Gathering scene plays, but since I was a scrub back in the day, playing on normal and not completing Jiminy's journal, I didn't discover it for a good while until a few months later, but that's a wild story for another day. Kingdom Hearts 2 is easily among my most treasured games and possibly even my all-time favorite. The combat evolved magnificently, the soundtrack was stellar, and the story, while has its own fair share of problems, at its best, more than makes up for the minute, flawed details. Well, that about wraps up this retrospective video on finishing Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time. It's something I've wanted to talk about for nearly a year at this point, and now is probably the best time to do so, with the release of Kingdom Hearts 3 on the horizon. As some of you may know, I'm starting a retrospective series on Kingdom Hearts, which I'm going to put a fair amount of time into. The first one will likely come out around October, but hopefully sooner. This video will somewhat be a part of that series, where I'll talk about aspects outside of what the review is going to cover, since a lot of these are spoilers. Anyways, if you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. Let me know your experience down below. If you could do so, sharing the video would really help me out. Thank you all for watching, and till next time, I'll see you later.